You're listening to the Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a little parable of a pebble, a rock, and a boulder. Are you a Catholic wife grappling with challenging in-laws? The Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast is your sanctuary for navigating the sometimes stormy seas of life with in-laws while being validated for what you've experienced. Join me, your host, Miriam Susan, a Catholic wife who's weathered nearly 3 decades of in-law drama, as we tackle the tough issues you're dealing with head on. Hello, welcome to today's episode. This is Miriam Susan, your host, and we're going to be talking about a little parable that I heard just this week that I think really exemplifies how the relationship with our in-laws can happen, can progress, can become. And I wanted to share this with you because I know that most of us learn better when we hear something told in a story. So that's why the parables of the Bible that Jesus told were so powerful, because you didn't have to be a super academic person to understand the message that Jesus was trying to convey. So what is this parable that I'm talking about? And I don't know if it's actually a parable, but I'm just calling that because I thought it would be fun. So let me first tell you what this parable is, and then I'll kind of go into how I see it connecting with our relationships with our toxic in-laws. So the story goes that God is trying to send somebody a message. And the first time he tries to send the message, he throws a little pebble. And because it's such a small pebble, this person that he's trying to get the attention of just kind of ignores it. Well, it's just a little pebble. It's not very bothersome. Let's just keep on going about our ways. Then, because God is still trying to get this person's attention, he throws a rock that person's way. And the rock is bigger than the pebble, and so it causes a little more pain. It gets a little bit more attention, but still it's not something that causes that person to stop and figure out where this rock is coming from, why the rock is hitting him. And then the boulder comes, and God is saying, you haven't paid attention to me when I threw the pebble. You haven't paid attention to me when I was throwing rocks at you. So now I'm going to throw a boulder that you cannot ignore. And when I heard this parable or this story, I thought, this is kind of how my relationship with my in-laws progressed. At the very beginning, it was just minor little things that I didn't think mattered, except that they were an indication of how I was willing to be treated, how I was willing to let my authority as a parent to my children be undermined. And I didn't see the big boulder that was going to eventually come. And so what are some of the small pebbles that were thrown at me? Well, there were a variety of little things. One of them was that when my mother-in-law first came out after I had our first baby. Now, our first 3 children were the first 3 grandchildren on both sides of the family. So my side and my husband's side. And so it was kind of a big deal. And I get it. And my mom had come out to be there for the birth. I ended up being late by 8 days, so she ended up being out where we were living at the time for a little over 2 weeks, just because she had come out. My daughter was late, and then she stayed a week after to help us during that first week of transitioning to parenthood. And it was wonderful. I mean, I'm so grateful and thankful for all the help that my mom provided during that time. And then after that, maybe it was even like the same day, like my mom left on the plane in the morning and my mother-in-law arrived that afternoon. During that time, when my mother-in-law kind of first saw our daughter in real life, she had seen some pictures. There were opportunities for us to send digital pictures back then. And she looked at her and she said that her mother had told her that if she had ever given birth to a girl, that she would have looked just like my daughter. And I thought, that's pretty weird. That's kind of weird. Why is she saying this? Because this is my daughter. Why would you say, it was, and I don't know if maybe I chalked it up to postpartum hormones, or just because she had kind of always said weird things that I just kind of let it go. That was a very small pebble. Another small pebble could be that my mother-in-law was very specific about the colors that she thought were appropriate and those that were inappropriate for a baby. And for us, we didn't really care. I found a cute little dress at Gymboree. It happened to be black, and it had embroidered little flowers all over it. It was just so cute. And I got that for our daughter to take her 6-month pictures in. We got the pictures. We sent them to my mom. My mom puts them out, sent them to my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and they put the pictures in a drawer because she didn't like seeing babies in dark colors. And sometimes she would put the blame on her mom and say, well, mother doesn't like to see babies in those colors. And she actually said that once to my sister-in-law and told her that my niece at that time was wearing a really cute gingham red and white checkered dress. Super cute. She looked so adorable. And my mother-in-law told her that her mom didn't really like babies in those kind of colors and that she should probably change. And so my sister-in-law did. And I mean, I don't blame her. She was a first-time mom, wanted to please her mother-in-law and her grandmother-in-law, but that's another little pebble. And my mother-in-law actually came out and told me that all of this. So it was like she was letting me know that she didn't like babies in that color, even though I already knew. But she could just kind of reinforce that she didn't like that. Because I also had a daughter around that same time who wore bright colors. They look good in bright colors. I don't have, except for two of our children, 2 out of our 6, are fair-skinned, light hair, blue eyes. All my other ones look much better in bright, dark colors as opposed to pastels. Those were little pebbles. You might have little pebbles like that in your relationship where your mother-in-law might say something like, maybe it's to a toddler or a young child and say, well, don't tell mommy that I'm giving you this ice cream. Or, we don't have to do what mommy says. I can give you some ice cream. Or, we don't have to do what mommy says. You can stay up later and watch this movie. You can do this. Anything like that. Those could be little pebbles. So, what's a rock? A rock might be something that happened. We were living in a estate about 8 hours away from my in-laws. My husband was in the military at the time. We had a home. It was 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. We had the master bedroom, and then we put our 3 girls in 2 of the bedrooms. The older 2 shared a room. The baby had her own room so that she could nap and not be disturbed. And then we had a playroom / guest room. In that guest room, we had a daybed with a trundle that pulled out so that when we had guests, like my in-laws, they could sleep on an actual bed. When we had lived in a different state when my oldest was born, all we had was a futon. And so we felt like, this is a pretty good upgrade. This is an actual mattress on an actual bed frame. Yes, it's a trundle. Yes, it's a daybed, but it's an actual mattress and it's comfortable and suited the purposes that we had for a playroom for our kids and a bed that could not take up the whole entire room so the kids could actually play in the playroom. And after one visit, when my in-laws, I forget what actually caused them to get upset with us, but they started throwing rocks at us, meaning we feel like we're sleeping in a chest of drawers when we're staying at your house. And you didn't have enough hooks for the towels that we were using in your bathroom. Okay, that's kind of, weird to put it lightly. Ungrateful, really, is probably a better word. My husband and I were not making a ton of money. We were comfortable, but we had 3 young children, and our priority in our house for everyday living was not to house guests. Perhaps when we are older and our children are grown, we will have focused guest rooms just for guests, but that was not our focus. Our focus was making the house comfortable for us as a family of 5. And so when they threw those accusations at us, it hurt. And it hurt my husband, and it made us both pretty upset and mad. And there was also a suggestion that a screen room that we put on the back of our house that would be just nice for us to hang out, have dinners outside in the summer or the spring when it wasn't too hot, and yet not have to deal with all the mosquitoes and the bugs, and just be able to enjoy some time outside without being directly in the sun and being eaten alive by mosquitoes. We were told that instead of making it a screen room, we should have made it into a full addition on the house with air conditioning and electricity so that my in-laws could have a private guest room to stay in that was right off the master bedroom. I'm sorry, that ain't ever going to happen. And so it was like we have done things to try to accommodate you, to try to be as welcoming as we can be, but it was never enough. And so that was kind of a rock. And then we had the boulder. And the boulder that hit us and steamrolled us was the deliberate undermining of my husband's and my authority as parents over our children. That happened on the day that our youngest son was baptized. We had invited everybody back to our house for lunch that I had prepared myself with a little help from my girls. And I was toast. If you have listened to other episodes of the podcast, I know I have gone into this in more detail, but basically my adrenals crashed from the stress of being around my mother-in-law and keeping an eye on her and making sure that she didn't have any time alone with our kids because we didn't trust her. And there she was in the middle of our kitchen with my 3 oldest girls, who were at the time 20 and 18 and 15. And she was trying to get them to agree to go on a mission trip with her and my father-in-law to another country. And she told them that basically they were all adults and they could make their own decisions and didn't have to ask mom or dad for permission. That was the conversation that my husband overheard that pushed him to the point of deciding, enough is enough. This is the boulder. I've ignored all the rocks. I've ignored all the pebbles. This boulder I cannot ignore. Mom and Dad, please don't contact me. I will contact you when I'm ready, but I'm done for now. That was our boulder. That plus seeing my body basically shut down after a visit with them, that was a boulder for my husband. I feel like there were some indications very early on that the stress of being around my in-laws was starting to affect me. I was starting to get butterflies, nervousness before every single visit. That was really a pebble. Just the butterflies, like, oh, I'm just not looking forward to this. Just an anticipation of walking on eggshells, of the stress, not knowing what kind of jabs might come from my mother-in-law, what kinds of things she might say in front of other people to make me look bad. What is she going to be doing? That was my pebble. And then the rocks started to be headaches. I would have migraines from the stress of being around my in-laws when I was visiting. And then after we got home. And then the boulder became full adrenal crashes, massive issues with my hormones, migraines that would last for days. That was a boulder. And so I encourage you to take some time and maybe try to figure out, where am I on this spectrum? Is it just pebbles that my in-laws are throwing at me that I'm ignoring? Pebbles of toxic behavior? That doesn't seem that bad. Or rocks where you kind of know that things aren't quite right. You know that this is not normal behavior, but your in-laws can be kind and loving on the surface to you and your kids. Or are you at the boulder stage where the true colors are out, you've seen them in full force, and you're just not ready to respond? I want to encourage you, maybe take a harder look at some of the things that you may think are pebbles and they're actually rocks, or things that are boulders and you think that they're just rocks. Because most of us who are in this kind of situation, we really want to give our in-laws the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we have no experience with people like this who are just toxic. And we think, well, surely somebody who raised the man that I love, the man that I married, the man who's an amazing father to our children, surely they can't be that bad. They can't be all bad. And that's the kicker, is that they're probably not all bad. They probably do have some very good qualities. I don't know if you've watched the movie The Help. I think it's a really well done movie that has a very interesting message in it. And in one of the scenes, there is a maid, and the family that she is a maid for treats her very, very poorly. Specifically, the wife. And she had upset her. I can't remember the exact series of events, but the maid came back to the family to apologize to this woman, and she brought a pie. And it was a chocolate pie. And she fed a piece to her employer, well, prior employer, because she got fired, and gave it to her. And the employer loved the pie, thought it was delicious, made a comment about, I don't know what you put in this pie that makes it taste so good. And the maid says, it's your poop. Actually, she doesn't say that word, but that's what she said. And so I made the comparison to my husband. It's like, yes, your parents have done some amazing things, just like the chocolate pie. But I don't want to keep eating that chocolate pie because I know what the secret ingredient is poop. And I don't want to have a single taste of it because I know what's in it. So I encourage you to take some time. Think about the pebble, the rock, the boulder. What is God trying to tell you? Is it God trying to tell you by your body shutting down, by having physical responses to your in-laws? Are you not listening to the prompting of the Holy Spirit that's telling you this is not right, this is not normal? What's going on? Listen to those things. I encourage you to reach out to me. Let me know. You can email me at hello@desiringpeace.com and let me know. What are you seeing? Are you more in the pebble stage, the rock stage, or the boulder stage? I hope this has been a helpful illustration for you to try to come to grips with what is going on with your toxic in-laws. And please do reach out. I look forward to hearing from you. Go in peace. God bless. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast. I have a free gift for you that I would love for you to get. It is my free scripts for toxic in-laws. It's a little PDF that you can use to give you some examples of how to speak to your in-laws about certain issues. I'd love to give it to you absolutely free. So if you head to desiringpeace.com/gift, it will be there waiting for you. Just enter your name and email so you can start using it for inspiration on how to talk with your toxic in-laws. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Go to desiringpeace.com/gift to claim your gift now. Disclaimer. All content and information on this podcast and our website, including our programs, products, and or services, is for information and educational purposes only and does not constitute professional medical, psychiatric, or mental health advice of any kind, and does not establish any kind of professional client relationship by your listening to this podcast or use of my website. A professional client relationship with you is only formed after we have expressly entered into a written agreement with you that you have signed, including our fee structure and other terms to work with you in a specific matter. Although we strive to provide accurate general information, the information presented here is not a substitute for any kind of professional advice, and you should not rely solely on this information. Always consult a professional in the area for your particular needs and circumstances prior to making any professional, medical, or mental health related decisions.